Nothing to hide, and I'm going to break it straight down the pipe for you, face to face.
Being tough gets you hurt. This is a sharp game, a skill game, a chess game, and I think people see that.
Then lost that fight, walking out of the ring. What were your memories? What did you think?
Boxing's a lot tougher than I expected.
UFC.
You don't even know. You don't know my ability though.
That's true. That's true.
You don't.
That's true. I don't know where you might go. I just give you where I think you're at, which I'm entitled to, which is average. Average is very complimentary.
The face-to-face meeting between Jake Paul and Anthony. Joshua offers a striking contrast between two men who built their reputations in completely different arenas. Paul, the former YouTuber turned prizefighter, steps up to Joshua with swagger and boldness, while Joshua studies him with the calm focus of a seasoned champion. Paul openly admits that Joshua's size, experience, and championship pedigree present a real threat. He doesn't downplay the danger, acknowledging this could be the hardest matchup of his career, yet insists he's eager to prove he belongs.
This relentless style, this forward pressure, taking lots of damage and not giving a fuck and returning that damage more than what his opponents are giving him. And that is sometimes more difficult to deal with.
December 19th officially locked in. The excitement surrounding the bout has surged. Paul stressed that this isn't a gimmick or a celebrity exhibition. It's a legitimate fight against a man who once held multiple heavyweight titles. He conceded that taking on Joshua is a huge gamble, but argued that aiming for greatness requires stepping into deep waters. Joshua, on the other hand, kept his cool, commending Paul's hustle and improvement while firmly reminding the public that experience is a powerful weapon. He made it clear that once the bell rings, courtesy disappears. Both fighters agreed that the outcome will reshape their careers. Either Paul shocks the world or Joshua reestablishes his authority in the division.
I like the challenge. People, that's the criticism. Fight someone in their prime who's a beast. I think people just want to see me lose. That's really what the message is behind it all. And Anthony Joshua is an insane fight, but I want that challenge. We've been DMing back and forth. He wants to make it happen. He called me up, and it's looking very likely for next year.
I want to fight Anthony Joshua exclusive because I know that I will beat Anthony Joshua. I know I will
got
beat.
knocked out, right?
Yeah. He doesn't have a chin, and he has no skill, and he's stiff. And I love you, Anthony. We're friends. But I want to fight you.
Former UFC champion Michael Bisping shared his thoughts, calling the situation a no-lose opportunity for Jake Paul, even if Paul gets defeated. Bisping says he'll earn respect simply for challenging. A former heavyweight champion, something few expected him to ever attempt. Taking a fight like this, in Bisping's view, proves Paul is willing to risk his reputation and step into real danger. But if Paul were to pull off an upset, his credibility in boxing would skyrocket. Conversely, Bisping sees the matchup as a possible lose-lose for Joshua. Should Joshua win, critics may dismiss it as a cash grab against a social media star instead of a serious contender. A loss, however, would deal a heavy blow to his legacy and spark doubts about his future.
The reason I say it's a win-win for Jake Paul is because, listen, if he wins, then he's beating a former heavyweight boxing world champion, certainly one of the best heavyweights of his generation, and of course, a man that is way bigger than Jake Paul. Of course, it's a win. And if he loses, it's still a win for Jake Paul because he had the balls. He was man enough. He was willing to test himself. He would prove everyone wrong, all his critics, like me. And by the way, I'm not like out there on an island by myself. Everyone says the same thing. And he would potentially prove all of those critics wrong. Well, yeah, he would, maybe, unless there's some funny business, right? And for Anthony Joshua, as I said, this is kind of a lose-lose, right? Because if he wins, people are still going to say, well, you only beat Jake Paul, right? The man that lost to Tommy Fury, after all, right? That's the only loss in his record, Tommy Fury. You're telling me that Tommy Fury is going to beat him and then Anthony Joshua's not going to beat him? So if he beats him, he gets no credit. And if he loses, then holy can you imagine? That would be the biggest downfall of any boxer's career. The reality is, he's not going to lose. There is no way on this earth that Jake Paul can beat Anthony Joshua in a boxing match. That's just a fact, okay? Look at what he did to Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou hits as hard as a Ford Escort, going 100 miles an hour or whatever that stat was. Comes from the UFC. He was the UFC heavyweight champion of the world. Has a good go against Tyson Fury, but goes up against Anthony Joshua and gets flatlined. Every single punch that was thrown was landed, and every punch that landed put Francis Ngannou down, okay? So to stand there and think that Jake Paul, who's much, much smaller, who has way less experience, that doesn't weigh anything near him, is going to have a chance, and not to mention the technical abilities.
For Joshua, many observers think this fight leans more towards strategic business than legacy building. One significant element is the size gap. Paul reportedly came in around 200 pounds for his bout with Mike Tyson, while Joshua typically competes in the mid-250 South.
Was going to be. I legit think it was probably close to happening. Now you're telling me there were discussions and potentially, signed to fight Gervonta Tank Davis. And again, I do believe the reason for that is Jake's massive size advantage. Again, that's like a 100-pound weight advantage. How would that even work? Like, how do you even... Never mind. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because it's not official and I don't think it's happening. So let's just not even broach that subject. But let's talk about the Anthony Joshua fight. And I want to hear the clip again because I just can't believe what I'm hearing. Let's play it again.
I know my boundaries. I want to fight Anthony Joshua exclusive because I know that I will fucking beat Anthony Joshua's ass. I know I
just
will
got knocked out, right?
Yeah. He doesn't have a chin and he has no skill and he's stiff. And I love you, Anthony. We're friends, all this shit, but I want to fight you.
So Jake says he wants to fight Anthony Joshua. He says he's going to beat Anthony Joshua's ass, that he doesn't have a chin, that he has no skill, and that he's stiff. And then you hear Derek again with the porn creeper stash chime in. Didn't he just get knocked out? Yeah, by Daniel Dubois, who is a reigning heavyweight champion of the world. Not that that means anything at all, I don't guess. Yeah, Jake's just flat out wrong here with a lot of his critiques of Anthony Joshua in comparison to himself. Like, if you want to say for the elite heavyweights in the world that Anthony Joshua has a little bit less skill and is more stiff than they are, then okay, but Anthony Joshua is still an elite heavyweight in the world. And then to go as far as to say, I will beat Anthony Joshua's, that he doesn't have a chin, no skill, he's stiff. Like, again, Jake can have this opinion. And he says that, that we're friends and I love you, but I want to fight you. And Jake may even believe that, but he's just wrong. Like, Anthony Joshua took heavy shots against Daniel Dubois before he was knocked out, and really, the reason he was knocked out is because he got in a firefight and threw an uppercut as a lead because Ben Davidson was saying some crazy shit in the corner.
Joshua has shared the ring with some of the sport's most dangerous heavyweights. Giving him a depth of experience Jake Paul simply hasn't earned yet. Joe Rogan has repeatedly highlighted this, pointing out that Joshua has survived brutal clashes at the highest level while Paul remains in the early stages of his boxing development.
Coming into his own, man. That's what that is. He's only like 27. That guy's fucking scary. He's dangerous. Going into that fight, it seems like he believed that he was just going to dominate him. He was so aggressive. He was just in the pocket constantly, just forcing Joshua to go to war. It was wild.
Everybody was like, look, to Joshua, I think you're done.
Right after he knocks out Francis Ngannou, and everyone's like, you're back.
Yeah.
Flattened Francis Ngannou, and everyone's like, oh, Joshua's back. Look how good he looked.
Dana White hasn't been generous in his assessment of Paul's career. He said he stopped watching Paul after he lost to a legitimate boxer, dismissing much of Paul's resume as pay-per-view entertainment rather than true competition. White also mocked the legal threats Paul's team made over claims of fixed fights, saying he doesn't believe the bouts are rigged, but he still doesn't consider them high-level boxing.
The fight that's reportedly being worked on for December 19th in Miami.
Did I see the fight being worked on December 19th in Miami?
Yeah.
No.
Do you know which fight I'm talking about?
No.
Fair enough.
Oh, Jesus. That's a fucking bad idea. That's a bad idea. But let me tell you what. A lot of people watch that one.
Will you watch it?
Sure. You know what everybody's tuning in for on that one. I think everybody's going to get what they've finally been waiting for.
Tommy. Fury has also brushed off the idea of Paul facing Joshua, calling Paul's aspirations ridiculous. He reminded everyone that he beat Paul while dealing with a serious hand injury, using that victory to question Paul's credentials. Fury argued that Paul hasn't earned a matchup of such magnitude and suggested Joshua has very little to gain. He even went as far as implying that if the fight lasts longer than expected, people might suspect Joshua was paid to hold back, because he doubts Paul can truly threaten a heavyweight of Joshua's caliber.
Can beat Jake Paul. And excuse my French, what the fuck is Anthony Joshua going to do to Jake Paul? I think my dad said that AJ could beat him with his prick, and I completely will back that up. Even if AJ had a broken arm in there, it still wouldn't go past a minute. To be quite honest with you, and as a safety aspect, there's no way that fight can go ahead. At the end of the day, my God, how good does it make me look? He gets beat by Jake Paul. Well, that automatically makes me two-time heavyweight champion of the world, doesn't it? There's no proper way. I've got to laugh about it. How are we even talking about this? He got his nut boxed off by me a little over 2 years ago, and now all of a sudden he's talking about fighting Anthony Joshua. It's like, come on. Like, you can't be serious. You can't beat me. I'm not Anthony Joshua, am I? So it's just ludicrous. It really is.
Tyson Fury, however, has taken the opposite stance with an audacious prediction. The former heavyweight champion has claimed that Jake Paul would knock out Anthony Joshua, confidently declaring that Paul would put a J to sleep. No question.
Jake Paul knocks out Joshua, seriously.
Jake Paul chins AJ, yes, they fight.
Are you serious?
100%.
Jake Paul calling him out. I think it's a good fight. I think it's a real 50-50 fight.
Fury believes the matchup is essentially even and has backed his prediction with a massive wager, pledging £1 million on Paul to win.
Tyson Fury just comes out with an interview saying that he thinks Jake Paul will knock out Anthony Joshua. I think this is probably like a troll attempt to get Anthony Joshua to fight Tyson Fury, but then again, I don't know. Maybe Alexander Usyk did more damage than we thought. I think Jake Paul knocks him out, Fury told Ring Magazine when asked about Paul versus Joshua. I just think Jake Paul would knock out Anthony Joshua out. I think Jake Paul is on the rise. I like his new heavyweight look, a bit chubby, a bit bulky, getting there. And he just did a great job over the aging. The fool's like almost 40, you know, and he like was not a fighter for a long time or a boxer. You know, he's just in it for the check and the name value of his dad, you know. Aging Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., he was a middleweight, but still. I like how Jake Paul calls out the full spectrum from featherweight to heavyweight. Who'd he call out? Tank Davis and Joshua? That's just crazy. I see Richter Skill call outs. Exactly. I will say, I don't know, Gervonta Davis could beat him too, even though he does outweigh him by like 60 pounds.